Hi, Bob Kalechman here for Millennium, and today I'd like to bring to your attention is the coming event, Veterans Day, which will occur on Monday, November 11th, and in Simsbury we'll be having a ceremony at 11 o'clock, which is the hour that the armistice was signed, stopping the war in Europe, the First World War in Europe. The armistice was signed November 11th, 1918. Now, years back, I'd say about 15 years or so back, they changed Armistice Day, which was on November 11th. They changed it to Veterans Day, and they kept the same day, November 11th, and they called it Veterans Day. So to start out my program today, I would like to honor one of the first veterans of America, war veterans of America, combat veteran, and that would be Israel Putnam, the general from Connecticut that participated in the war for independence, the war we call the Revolutionary War. And he's buried in Brooklyn, Connecticut. He has a monument there. And the original headstone is located in the state capitol in the war room. I call it the war room, the room of flags. And his epitaph, his gravestone with the epitaph, is stored in the state capitol. And the reason for that, souvenir takers were taking so many souvenirs that they had to protect his headstone, and they replaced it with a monument dedicated to his memory. And I'd like to read you the epitaph on the monument of General Israel Putnam. And the epitaph of Israel Putnam. To the memory of Israel Putnam, Esquire, Senior Major General in the Army of the United States of America, who was born at Salem in the province of Massachusetts on the 7th day of January, A.D. 1718, and died on the 29th of May, A.D. 1790. Passage. If thou art a soldier, drop a tear over the dust of a hero, who ever attentive to the lives and happiness of his men, dared to lead where any dared to follow. If a patriot, remember the distinguished and gallant service rendered thy country by the patriot who sleeps beneath this monument. If thou art honest, generous, and worthy, render a cheerful tribute of respect to a man whose generosity was singular, whose honesty was proverbial, who raised himself to universal esteem and office of eminent distinctive by personal wealth and a useful life. General Israel Putnam. And he honored the country at many battles. Harlem Heights, where he rode his horse down the steps, and he was a very brave man. And the bravery was such at Harlem Heights that the British dare not follow. And he eventually became commander of West Point, and he marched his men through Connecticut many times, right out of here on Route 44, where they marched right through over Avon Mountain, up through, and all the way up to New York to West Point. And right outside on the other side of of the Avon Mountain. Just between the Avon and West Hartford line, there was a hospital that was stationed there for revolutionary combatants that were coming back wounded, and they stayed at this hospital. So, but before I go any further, I like to more or less go into the history of Veterans Day. Veterans Day in the United States. It's on Monday, November 11th, 2013. Now, it's observed by all veterans and is intended to honor and thank all military personnel who served the United States in all wars. Particularly living veterans, it is marked by parades and church services. And I encourage each and every veteran in Simsbury or in the surrounding areas to please come to the Eno Hall in Simsbury on Hot Meadow Street at 10:45 or 10:30 on the 11th of November, which is a Monday in November. Come and join the, it's not a celebration, join us in honoring our falling dead and honoring the living members. And come and let us all thank you for your service, going back to all the way back to the Revolutionary War. But those that are living, World War I, Spanish-American War, World War II veterans, Korean veterans, Vietnam veterans, Lebanon I, Lebanon II, by all means, all veterans, Iraq, Afghanistan, and the various Marine detachments that participated in Ecuador and freeing those governments down there recently, by all means, all veterans, please come, please attend so we can honor you. And the history is on the 11th hour of the 11th day of the 11th month of 1918, an armistice between Germany and the Allied nations came into effect on November 11th, 1919, Armistice Day. Was commemorated for the first time in 1919. President Wilson proclaimed the day should be filled with solemn pride in the heroism of those who died in the country and service with gradual for victory. There were plans for parades, public meetings, and a brief suspension of business activities at 11 o'clock. Now, in most cases, what they would do in earlier times, at 11 o'clock on November 11th, they would chime bells, church bells, whistles, and everything would be chimed. And then it would be followed by a minute of silence in respect to the fallen, and then the honoring of veterans would take place. And in most cases, a lot of people go to the graves to honor and decorate the fallen. In 1926, the United States Congress officially recognized the end of World War I and declared that the anniversary of the armistice should be commemorated with prayer and thanksgiving. The Congress also requested that the President should issue a proclamation calling upon the officials to display the flag of the United States on all government buildings on November 11th, and inviting the people of the United States to observe the day in schools, in churches, or other suitable places with appropriate ceremonies of friendly relations with all other people. It's Act 52, State 351, 5 U.S. Code Section 87A was approved on May 13, 1938, which made November 11th in each year a legal holiday known as Armistice Day. This day was originally intended to honor veterans of World War I. A few years later, World War II required the largest mobilization of servicemen in the history of the United States. The Congress to change the word armistice to veterans, Congress approved this change, and on June 1st, 1954, November 11th became a day to honor all American veterans wherever and whenever they had served. In 1968, the Uniform Holiday Bill, Public Law 90-363, 82 State 250, made an attempt to move Veterans Day to the fourth Monday of October. The bill took effect, and 71 continued to hold Veterans Day activities on the 11th. In 1975, President Gerald R. Ford signed Public Law 9497, 89 Stat, which stated that Veterans Day would again be observed on November 11th. And that gives you a brief history of Veterans Day. And I think what we have is during World War I, there was a battle that was taken up by the United States Marine Corps, the 5th and 6th Regiment in Bellewood, France. Now, this is where the Marine Corps received one of their nicknames called Devil Dogs. In German, Treffelhund is the way the German soldier referred to them as. Treffelhund, Devil Dogs. And these Devil Dogs were the only regiments, the 5th and 6th Regiments, Marine Corps regiments, were the only regiments between Paris and the German army from occupying Paris. And the 5th and 6th Marines held back the entire German army. Believe it or not, they held back the entire German army. And they held them at a place called Bellewood. And in those days, the battle took place in the summer, in June, and it was very hot. And in those days, the Marine Corps uniform was a wool tunic with a high collar. And these Marines, in a wheat field, in June, with temperatures well over 90, 100 degrees, held off the German army. And one of the leaders, or one of the heroes, was a First Sergeant Daniel Daly, a fellow from Long Island, New York, that had been in the Marine Corps a while, was a first sergeant, and he received the Congressional Medal of Honor. In fact, he's one of the only 2 or 3 Marines that received the medal twice. He received it once during the Boxer Rebellion in China, and the second time he received it in Bellewood. And he started the counterattack where they said famous words that they still utter in the Marine Corps, and I'll refrain from the vernacular, but it was, you can't live forever, charge. And the Marines stood up, and it was a bayonet charge, and they charged the German emplacements, and they stopped the advance and held back the Germans. And in turn, there's a cemetery in Bellewood that's Marines, and every year, French people, Marines, they go to this cemetery and they honor fallen Marines that were killed in the First World War. And there's one lieutenant, a Marine Corps lieutenant, that suffered in those days. Who knew what brain trauma or PSD was? Who knew it? Nobody knew it. But he had PSD, and he stayed with his men, and he stayed in the Marine Corps. Finally, they shipped him out to a hospital, and he died. But when they buried him, they took him back from the States, they took him back to France, and buried him in Bellewood Cemetery with his fellow Marines that he had led on the attack against the Germans, and he and his comrades were given the name Devil Dog by the Germans, Teufelshund. And just let me read a few experts. Belleau Wood has also encapsulated the resolve of Marines in combat, but now, thanks to the story, is a bit more focused, slightly more intense, and certainly more respected. Belleau Wood is a synonym with Iwo Jima, Tarawa, the Chosin Reservoir, the Battle of Hughes City, and now Fallujah, among other battles in the Leatherneck history. But Belleau Wood is arguably the most important, not merely because it was the first demonstration of tenacity in combat, because this was a Marine Corps that had yet to be tested, that could follow the lead of Europe forces in the destruction of tyranny. And this is where the Marine Corps achieved some of their tenacity, was at Belleau Wood. Now, a Veterans Day wouldn't go by, or an Armistice Day wouldn't go by, without reading the poem by Lieutenant Colonel John McCrae that was written in 1918 during the World War I in the trench fighting. And this was particularly in the heavy fighting that was occurring in Flanders. In Flanders fields the poppies blow, between the crosses row on row, that mark our place, and in the sky the larks still bravely singing fly. Scarce heard among the guns below, we are the dead short days ago. We lived, felt dawn, saw sunset glow, loved and were loved, and now we lie in Flanders fields. Take up our quarrel with the foe, to you from falling hands we throw, the torch be yours to hold it high. If ye break faith with us who die, we shall not sleep, though poppies grow in Flanders field. It's a very touching poem, and when you stop and you read and you interpret, it says a message to the present day government, and the message is, pick up the torch of freedom, which they're not doing. And they're not taking care of their veterans, and they're cutting, and it's not right. And support your veterans, and for that matter, support the people that gave you the freedom that you have today, that you leave your house, you do just what you want, and there's nobody telling you which way to go. And that's the way that it's been intent by the forefathers of the United States in the Constitution, and also in the Connecticut Constitution, which incidentally is stronger than the United States Constitution. But many of legislatures in Connecticut, the senators and representatives, have no idea. They represent one thing: political party. And in our case, sad as it may be, it's the Democratic Party, not the people of Connecticut. Now, there's one other thing that I hold kind of solemn, in the sense that it goes hand in hand with Veterans Day, and that's Shakespeare's King Henry V, Act 4, Scene 3. And let me read it to you, though my Shakespeare is not what it should be. This day is called Feast of Thespian. He that live this day and come safe home will stand a tiptoe, and then the day is named, and rouse him at the name of Thespian. He shall live this day and see old age, will yearly on Virgil feast his neighbors, and say, tomorrow is St. Crispin, Then will he strip his sleeves and show his scars and say, "These wounds I had on Cispin's day. Old men forget, ye shall be forgot, but we remembered with advantage what feats we did that day. Then shall our names be familiar in his mouth as household words. Harry the King, Bedford, Exeter, Warwick, and Talbot, Salisbury, and Gloucester be in their flowing cups freshly remembered. This story shall the good man teach his son, and Crispian shall ne'er go by from this day to the ending of the world. But we in it shall be remembered. We few, we happy few, we band of brothers. For he today that sheds his blood with me shall be my brother." And that more or less expressed a lot of sentiment of people in regards to veterans, because veterans are comrades, and it's a bond that few people will understand, but most of us do. Now, I'd like to more or less go over the service record of an uncle of mine. His name was Henry Earl Cotter. He's a namesake. My first name is Henry. And he enlisted in the Army, the U.S. Army, in 1918. And this is his service record. Name in full, and they do that, Cotter Henry Earl. Date of birth, September 5th, 1897. Place of birth, Meriden, New Haven, Connecticut, United States of America. Name of father, Henry Cotter, Hartford, Connecticut. Maiden name of mother, Bertha Breen. Birthplace, Ireland. And then, of course, in those days, they listed your ethnicity, and in his case, he's listed, and I will go into it. Are you white, colored, Indian, or Mongolian? And he writes in white. Are you a citizen? He says no, and the voter no, because he was underage, so you had to be a certain age to be a citizen, and you had to be a certain age to be a voter, but he was old enough to serve in the United States Army. So he went off to serve. Now, and then it gives the order, and he was a clerk, and he resided, he gives his residence. And then his war record, he enlisted on March 28, 1918. He was a private in the infantry. He was the active guard, and he was assigned to Company L, 1st Connecticut Infantry. That's how it was in those days. And then he was transferred to the 102nd Regiment, 26th Division, the Yankee Division. And they went to Europe, believe it or not. They were sent up to Canada, and they were boarded ships in Montreal, and they were shipped by RSM Canada to Liverpool, England. He arrived in Liverpool on October 2nd, 1917. He proceeded from Liverpool to Southampton, England, October 2nd, 1917, from Southampton to Le Havre, France, and October 5th, 17, from Le Havre to Camp Chateauneuf, and that was where he was stationed. Now, he was gassed at the Battle of Chateau-Thierry. He was gassed, and he spent a year in France and Scotland and England recuperating from being gassed. And in those days, they were not given a Purple Heart. You were just given a hash mark to show that you were wounded. And he didn't receive his Purple Heart until to the 40s, and he was very proud of it. And I don't have enough, any more time to go through my other relative, Robert Carter, who was with the Union Cavalry, 1st Regiment, Connecticut Cavalry. And I don't have time for that. But the only thing in closing, World War II, is that he was a member of the Yankee Division. It was the 26th Division. It was called the Yankee Division. And he was a member of that. So he served, and he served bravely. And the Yankee Division was known as New England Zone. Now, I have to close. I had a lot to go over, and unfortunately, I won't be able to cover everything. And the only other thing is the fact that the Yankee Division has a museum up in Maine, and they can go through all the exploits of the American forces in Europe, especially the New England divisions that comprise the Yankee Division for the World War I. I had hoped to go through other situations with you and go through some of the letters, and the only thing I can leave you with is the fact that November 11th, Monday, 2013, at 10:30, 11:45 at Inno Hall, November 11th, 2013. And come and honor all the veterans. And I guess that concludes my program. I wanted to go through it politically, but let me remind you that get out and vote, and maybe it's time for a change, but it's for you to decide. And we have a good country. Let's keep it that way. Thank you for allowing me into your home. Bob Kalechman for now. God bless.
Funding for Simsbury Community Television is provided in part by contributions from viewers like you. Thank you.